Who do you think I'm talking about? Who are the people who hate us more than they love Allah?
That's obviously the Ali Dawa, the Muhammad Hijab side.
Yeah, and the people like Sajid and his buddy Abdul Rahman and everyone on their side, they're the people who they still hate us. They just love Allah more than they hate us, right? And so if you're looking at what's going on, right, Ali Dawa will come out and call the apostate prophet a name, knowing as soon as he calls the apostate prophet a name, the apostate prophet is going to call Muhammad a name. And Ali Dawa, in his mind, well, it was worth it because I called him a name. And if you're Sajid, you're saying, who do you think this guy is that you think it's so important that you insult him that you think it's worth it if he insults Muhammad back? Keep in mind, AP was not going to toss out random name calling to Muhammad till Ali Dawa starts with the name calling.
Salaam Alaikum. Mr. Moderator, our distinguished guests, brothers and sisters, our friends and our enemies.
Family. From the time I started this channel and I started this journey on YouTube, from day one, I made it a point to not make it a Dawah channel. Why? Because of the train wreck which we call social media Dawah. I have always been a proponent and a supporter of grassroots Dawah. And some of y'all are confused. What's the difference between grassroots Dawah and YouTube Dawah? And the reason why y'all confused is because you're probably in your 30s and under. And you ain't ever seen people go on the streets, or you haven't actually done it yourself, where you go on the streets and just call people to Allah, call people to Islam, sit down, study, try to get Islamic knowledge in order to call people to Allah and get actual shahadas. That's grassroots Dawah. And what's happening on your social media with your YouTubian social media da'i elites is chaos. And that is why I've always made it a point to stay out of the online Dawah scene. As a matter of fact, I made my first Dawah video last week when I did a video titled Jesus in the Eyes of a Black Muslim. And the criticism that I got was that that video was too long, which alludes to an overwhelming problem with not just Muslims, but rather society in general, where society is suffering from ADHD because they can't handle anything in anything more than 10 minutes. It has to be 10 minutes or less, and it has to stimulate their dopamine glands enough for them to pay attention for that 10 minutes, and they think this is Dawah. Well, it's not. So now we have this man, the enemy of Allah, David Wood, who is dropping pure science, no cap. And what's going to happen is, because y'all don't know how to pay attention, and because y'all can't even side with the truth, your entire existence is based upon personalities, is that some of y'all are going to say, oh, look at the Feachaz, he's siding with the enemy of Allah. And the Feachaz doesn't side with the enemy of Allah. The Feachaz sides with the truth. As you can see here in this hadith, which is in Sahih Bukhari. It's a long hadith, and I will leave the link in the description for some of y'all who've never seen this hadith before. But those of us who are older definitely know about this hadith, about when Shaitan, or Satan himself, was trying to steal from the spoils of war, and then he gave this knowledge, authentic knowledge, to Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu. Of course, Abu Hurairah didn't know who it was, and it was the Prophet from his blessed mouth himself who said about this person, and I'm quoting the English translation here, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, he really spoke the truth, although he is an absolute liar. Do you know whom you were talking to? These three knights, Abu Hurairah, And Abu Hurairah said, no. And the Prophet ﷺ said, it was shaitan, it was Satan. And I say the same thing. Whether you know David Wood or not, he absolutely spoke the truth here, even though he's a devil. I've been saying this from the time I started this channel, what's going on with your YouTubian elite, and how the real problem is that the Muslims insist on consuming this garbage, and then they turn around and blame a bunch of narcissists in thobes and beards for the problems on social media. You know what y'all look like? Y'all look crazy. But now it's one thing if your older brother tells you what's really happening, but it's completely different can of worms when the enemy of Allah himself, and you have to hear it from his filthy mouth, the truth. It should be a big wake-up call. So, without further ado, introducing David Wood, a drop in science, doing the Muslims a major favor without even knowing it.
But with the rise of the internet, Muslims could bypass the organizations, the Muslim organizations and Muslim schools that were carefully handpicking people who were good for reaching a Western audience. Now, a Muslim could just jump on YouTube, start preaching, start making fun of the unbelievers, and get a massive following. So you can get some people who are far more popular than anyone who's going the older route, where you had to, they would want you to spend years training and learning about Islam so you don't make dumb mistakes, learning how to present Islam under fire and you don't make dumb mistakes and say something stupid. So they were handcrafting people back in the day. Muslim organizations and dawah centers were handcrafting the next champions of Islam. And then all of a sudden the internet gets here and anyone can jump forward and build up a following and become more popular than those guys. And so this is how you get your Ali Dawas and your Muhammad hijabs and what you have. And I've been saying this for years, that sometimes the people who will do well on YouTube are people who want a lot of attention, right? Those are the people who love jumping in videos and getting lots of attention for themselves. So you run the risk of running into some people with narcissistic personalities where they want attention, they want glory for themselves. And so you have to be careful of that, because when someone jumps on YouTube, is it because that person views YouTube as the best way to share information with large, parts of the world? Or is that a person who wants attention and glory for himself? And what you've got over the past few years is you've gotten speakers who they're young, they're aggressive, they have narcissistic tendencies, meaning they want attention and praise for themselves. And then they jump online and they get the attention that they want. They get the attention that they crave. And that just boosts their egos. So now they're like the center of the universe, according to themselves. They feel like they're the center of the universe. And so they become more and more narcissistic, and they get to the point where you can't question them anymore. They can't handle any sort of criticism. They lash back at you if you try to challenge or criticize them in any way. They can't handle, as narcissists, they can't handle any sort of criticism. And so you have several of the top champions of Islam now are actually narcissists who can't handle any sort of criticism and whose egos have been massively inflated by their followings, but they're doing things that are that are becoming increasingly more and more embarrassing to the Muslim community, because they didn't go through those years of careful training. They didn't go through
Exactly.
that. Yeah, and they're doing things to get themselves attention, so they have to keep one-upping themselves and schooling everyone more and more and insulting everyone more and more. And so they're getting their heads are getting bigger and bigger. And now you've actually got Muslims who recognize, guys, we got a problem here. We have to do something about it. The people who will have the biggest names right now and are most popular are people who are doing horrible, horrible damage. We need to say something. But now you can't say anything to these guys, because as soon as you say something to them, hey, you're wrong about this. You're just jealous. You're jealous of my fame. You're jealous because I'm the greatest da'i in history. You're jealous because of the great influence I have, and you're trying to tear me down because you're jealous of my popularity. And so that's the situation we've got going on right now with that's what started the Dawa Civil War.
Paper gold. You see, black folks are chumps. If America were to tell you to bring all the rocks in this country to her, and she'll give you $1 million for it, you'll do it. And the next day she'll tell you we're using rocks for currencies, chump.